He was arrested for dancing on the street until they found out who this black hoodie man really was. What happens when a man gets arrested just for dancing, and his silence sparks a wave no one can stop? What followed turned the streets of New York into a stage where every step became an act of defiance. It was a little before 8 a.m. on a Manhattan Monday, the kind of morning that hits you like a tax bill. The air was thick with the sour perfume of ambition and exhaust. Espresso steam tangled with sidewalk trash. Everyone was moving fast and going nowhere special, just another daily migration of pressed suits, white earbuds, and the fake urgency of shallow phone calls about shallow lives. The kind of crowd that doesn't look at you unless you spill your coffee or collapse from exhaustion. And then he showed up, right there in the middle of 3rd Avenue, like he had been dropped in from a different dimension. A tall, lean black man in a jet black hoodie. Not flashy, not loud. Commanding. His skin glowed like deep roast coffee in morning light, and the way he moved, Lord, like James Brown had risen just for this moment. No beatbox, no boom bap, just the city's own rhythm beneath his sneakers. He didn't walk. He flowed. He danced like freedom itself had decided to take a stroll before breakfast. Each step was precise. Each glide had attitude. A spin here, a clap there. No tip jar, no sign. He didn't ask for attention. He took it, but not like a show-off, more like a mirror, reflecting what everyone else forgot, that they still had bodies, breath, and the right to move. But this city don't like reminders. One by one, heads turned, not in admiration, but in suspicion. Some shifted their eyes like the sun had gotten too bright. Others clenched their handbags like a song could snatch their wallets. And then came her, a woman, white tailored trench coat and a cardboard Starbucks cup like a prop. You know the type. Lived on oat milk and fear of not being the center of things. She didn't speak to him. She didn't even look him in the eye. She just tossed her words into the wind like seeds of paranoia. "Is this even legal?" she said loud enough for a dozen ears to perk up. And as if the question had been loaded with a GPS, a cop cruiser rolled up like it had been waiting just around the corner. No siren, no lights. Just a soft blink of red and blue that said, "Fun's over, kid." The officer stepped out, the embodiment of the authority molded in cookie-cutter whiteness. Mid-50s, doughy in the middle, with that permanently annoyed look of someone who's been ignored at home and plans to take it out on the public. He squared up to the dancer like the man had a weapon, not rhythm. "Hey, cut that out right now. You're disturbing the peace." The man kept moving, but slower now, smoother, as if shifting from major to minor, still playing, just on a different scale. He turned toward the officer and gave a gentle, unfazed smile. "Morning, officer. Did I bother somebody?" "Hands up," the cop snapped. "Now, no funny stuff." And just like that, the sidewalk froze. Phones came out like reflexes, not to help, not to ask questions, but to document, just in case it became news or dinner conversation, or a lesson in what happens when a black man doesn't play the part. The dancer raised his hands, still smiling, still calm. No threat, no attitude, just presence. That was his only offense, being. "You are under arrest for disorderly conduct," the officer barked, gripping his wrists. "For dancing?" the man asked, not angry, but genuinely puzzled. "For resisting. If you keep talking smart." The cuffs clicked shut. A murmur in the crowd. A few gasps, one clap. A 6-year-old boy tugged on his mother's arm and whispered, "Mama, he was just dancing." And she, like the city around her, forced a polite smile and said, "Don't look, baby. It's not our business." Back at the station, it smelled like dust, old coffee, and half-kept promises. The front desk sergeant, the kind of guy who'd probably been waiting 20 years to retire and 2 years to care, barely looked up. "Name?" he asked, voice flat as day-old bread. "Call me Dancer," the man said calmly. The sergeant blinked, then chuckled. "You playing games?" "Not at all. I'm just being honest. I'm not a who, I'm a what. And you didn't bring me in here because of my name." The sergeant rolled his eyes and started typing. "Right, so, Dancer, no ID, no phone, no matches on fingerprints. Great, just another street clown who thinks performance art's a license." But not everything was going according to the tired old script. On the other side of the precinct, a rookie officer, barely out of academy, was killing time on TikTok. Scrolling, 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 until he saw it. A viral clip with over 1 million views. The exact moment, 3rd Avenue, morning, black hoodie, the dance, and the comments, fire and brimstone. "So being joyful is a crime now? If he were white, this would be called performance art. I know that man. He's the one who pulled a girl out of the subway last year when the tracks flooded. The rookie's eyes widened. He hit rewind, froze the screen on the dancer's face. That same expression, that same stillness, that presence. Back then, it had been blurry. Security footage. No ID. No name. He vanished before paramedics came. But now, he was right there, in holding cell 3B. The rookie marched down the hall, holding his phone like it was evidence from the future. He found his supervisor, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair. Not a bad guy, just burnt out. "Sir, you gotta see this." The supervisor watched, shrugged. "Internet's not real life. We follow protocol. No ID. Disturbing peace. He'll get booked and released." "But what if he's someone important?" The supervisor cut in. "Then we're all in trouble. But until then, he's just another black guy who dared to be too free on a Monday morning." Later that night, the man in the black hoodie sat quietly in the holding cell, back straight, eyes fixed on the wall. No prayer, no panic, just waiting. A few floors up, the same young officer stared at the screen again, then turned toward the booking window and muttered, not to anyone in particular, "This ain't right." Meanwhile, across town in the offices of a local independent paper, a reporter, young, hungry, and wide-eyed, typed furiously under a headline that glowed like a flare. "Arrested for dancing. Who is the man in the black hoodie?" And in a living room in Harlem, an old woman sipped her tea, watched the clip on her TV, and smiled. "That's him. That's the one. Saved my grandson from a burning school bus 2 years ago. Vanished before the sirens came. I never forgot that face. He danced after, like death was just another beat." The building of Manhattan's 11th precinct looked menacing before you even crossed the threshold. Not thanks to architecture, because it is a plain, unremarkable box, but rather because of the scent that lingered in its corridors. A pungent mix of stale sweat, resignation, exhaustion, and institutional apathy so thick you could taste it. Every wall seemed weighed down by the countless lies, silences, and broken promises it had silently absorbed over the years, as if the building itself were fatigued by the perverse rituals of enforcement and bureaucracy. Inside an interrogation room, a single bare bulb flickered over a metal table, casting sharp shadows across his shoulders as he sat upright, hands cuffed behind his back, the cold steel biting into his wrists. Yet he did not flinch, did not plead for easier circulation, nor did he extend kindness or desperation. He simply remained composed, with a gaze fixed on the mirror behind which watchers observed, and maybe, just maybe, he was looking back at those trying to decipher who, in all this chaos, he truly was. The lieutenant entered, heavy steps announcing that he carried authority like a debt collector, and he slumped onto a squeaky chair, gripping a notepad and pen, as if they might summon respect where none existed. "What's your real name?" he asked, his tone flat and expectant, coated with the subtle irritation of someone who presumed control by default. The man exhaled, eyes steady. "Would you like to acknowledge that you arrested me for breathing too freely?" There was a pause so thick it might have been cruel, as though the lieutenant's questions were offered with rote expectation rather than curiosity or integrity. "That isn't an answer," the lieutenant replied, voice edged in impatience. "That isn't a question." He clicked his pen, the sharp gesture meaningless except as a feeble attempt at gravity. What did he really want? Confession? Tears? Fear? Instead, he got quiet defiance, a stare that burned through him harder than any shout from an angry mob ever could. "You have no ID, no phone, no record of even a traffic violation. Who the devil are you?" His words were an accusation, and a curse rolled into one. "I'm the one who walked onto the street and reminded them they still have bodies, that they're more than offices, escalated mortgages, and commuter bloodlines. I reminded them life moves." The lieutenant shook his head, a dismissive sigh. "That's poetic, but in our terms, that's suspicious." Meanwhile, outside in the precinct lobby, phones overheat under a flood of calls. Hundreds. People demanding explanations. Someone sent in video. One caller left a voice message that hung heavy in the ears of the operator. "You actually arrested a man for dancing?" But then came one call that sent a bead of sweat down even the lieutenant's clenched spine. A voice like gravel from deep in authority, clipped enough to deliver a command without need for emphasis. "Prepare a room. He is ours. We depart in 23 minutes." 23 minutes later, the precinct doors swung open, and in walked a woman in a dark navy suit, with a face that needed no introduction. A face that made even hardened cops fall silent. Agents like her don't step into rooms. They reshaped the air. Where is the detainee? We are not sure who he really is, stammered the sergeant. Confidence is your problem. We need access. Immediately. Back in the interrogation room, the dancer rested his eyes for a moment. Exhaustion or calculation? Who could say? You sure you want to keep playing? The lieutenant leaned forward, voice softening with weariness. You've been in holding for 6 hours. We have footage, protocol, witnesses. Everything's documented. Just say your name. Cameras are perspective, not truth. Protocol is form, not fairness. Witnesses? He tilted his head slightly, amused. You really think the crowd too frightened to cross the curb will suddenly admit, yes, that was injustice? So you chose your fate, the lieutenant pressed. Number one stopped agreeing to someone else's. An hour later, he was moved to another room. New space, brighter lights, walls freshly painted to erase previous stories. And across the table sat not a uniformed cop, but a woman who opened her laptop without greeting or emotion. She flipped the screen, and there it was. Surveillance footage from multiple years, multiple contexts, all showing the same face, the same presence. Him, emerging from crowds to pull a woman off the subway tracks before the train arrived, evacuating children from a burning school hallway, breaking up a rooftop altercation before someone called the police. Every time he vanished before the system could frame the narrative. She asked quietly, "You know who I am?" He nodded. "Then you know why I'm here." He nodded again. "But they still arrested you." "They didn't know. They refused to know. There's a difference." She closed the notebook with resolution. "I can get you out right now. But there's a condition." He arched an eyebrow. "You must disappear. Forever. No name. No dance. No trace. Because too many people are asking, why did they arrest him? And you know how the system hates unanswered questions." He thought about it. Not long. Because he knew the rules of this game. If you are loud, they erase you. If you are clever, they bury you. And if you are loud and clever, and you dance in public, then you won't just vanish. You will be erased. And if I refuse, the woman straightened, then you stay here until they invent your name for you. And when that name exists, so will everything else. Charges, history, biography. You will become what they decide you are. He smiled, faint but firm. I have already been what they wanted me to be. Now I'm simply the one who moves. The next morning, they escorted him out a back exit. No paperwork, no signatures. Officers averted their eyes as if acknowledging a mistake would stain them. One young guard whispered, "I'm sorry," but he wasn't even sure what for. And he walked, slowly, purposefully, in the same black hoodie, same stride, same silence. At his back, echoes of urgency collapsed into the hum of regularity. They watched him leave, and for a moment they felt a hollow ache, as if someone had removed the color from a life they thought gray. Because he wasn't gone. He had just changed how the city noticed him. He disappeared, not like a criminal dodging a warrant or some fame chaser ducking cameras. No, he disappeared the way only someone can when they've decided they don't want to be mistaken for one of those. Not hidden, just gone. Like he stepped off the sidewalk and became the pavement itself. But New York didn't forget. Oh no. The city whispered about him louder than it did about its mayors. From Harlem barbershops where grown men pass clippers and politics, to uptown boardrooms with coffee more bitter than the executives, to TikTok scrolls flying past eyelids faster than reason. Everywhere, the same question lingered like jazz on Sunday morning. Who is he? Why didn't he fight back? And why did he stay silent? Then the next evening, just after sunset wrapped the skyline in soft indigo, a video dropped on Instagram. Grainy but unmistakable. Same black hoodie, same walk that dared gravity to interrupt it. Only this time the man wasn't alone. He was on a rooftop in the East Village. Old bricks, old stories, and dozens behind him. No, hundreds. Every single one in black hoodies. All moving, not in sync, but in harmony. No banners, no chants, no clever slogans, just bodies moving. And in that movement, everything, anger, history, joy, survival, rhythm, resistance. One step said, "I'm here." Another said, "You won't erase me." Every motion, a sentence in a language older than words. And those watching, they didn't scroll. They stopped. No logos, no brands, just presence. By the second day, City Hall was sweating like the subway in July. Interns scrolled frantically through comments while aides whispered into Bluetooth earpieces like stock markets were crashing. One senior advisor finally broke the silence. "We can't let this become a movement, especially not a dancing one. It's too clean, too aesthetic, too contagious. First, they tried dismissing it as performance art. Then came whispers of provocation. Then they floated a rumor, mental instability. But the problem wasn't the man. The problem was the mirror he held up. And the reflection was making a whole lot of people very uncomfortable because they had nothing on him. No government name, no tax records, no unpaid tickets, no leases, no LinkedIn, nothing. And the people? Oh, the people had everything. They had the image, the gait, the pause before the spin. They had the symbol, simple as a footstep, pure as a turn. On the third day, he walked into a downtown building, one of those buildings where public funding means private hoarding and budgets are decided by people who've never ridden the M15 bus, where the furniture is soft, the walls echo, and the decisions never touch the sidewalks they affect. The front desk receptionist, white woman, too much perfume, and a face that screamed, "I wasn't expecting you," straightened in her seat. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked with the sharpness of someone mistaking courtesy for currency. He simply pointed at the word on her name badge, respect. "I'm here about that. Is it scheduled today?" She blinked, didn't get it. He walked past her. No one stopped him, not the guards, not the men with clipboards, not even the woman dialing security, because in that moment, trying to stop him would have been like trying to bottle wind. He entered a conference room mid-meeting, a dull space with an even duller agenda. 7 city commissioners, all starched and polished, mid-sentence about strategies to reduce radical behavior in minority youth. He didn't wait, didn't knock, didn't sit. One commissioner stood up sharply. "Excuse me, who are you? How did you get in here?" He met his eyes. "I walked into the room where people write rules that break us." Another commissioner, rounder, redder, stuttered. "We're in the middle of important deliberations." He raised a brow. "Important? Like the decision to remove musical programs from every school in my zip code? That kind of important?" Silence. He walked to the whiteboard, uncapped a marker, wrote in bold letters, "Freedom of movement is not a political opinion, it's a human right," then turned around, calm, centered. "I'm not here because I need you to like my steps. I'm here because my body became a threat the moment it moved beautifully, and that doesn't mean I'm dangerous. It means you're afraid." No one moved, but someone recorded. The clip hit social media like a storm breaking a levee. 12 million views in 6 hours. CNN ran with, "Resistance in rhythm. Who is the man in the black hoodie?" In the comments, "He moves like truth wrapped in bass. He's got the mind of Baldwin and the feet of James Brown." You feel that? That's called ancestral muscle memory. They tried to bury it, but it keeps dancing. The next day, a primetime talk show sent him an invite. He declined. The day after that, a sneaker brand sent him a contract. He didn't respond. But on the third day they came. 3 men, crisp coats, no names, no badges, no smiles. They didn't sit. They didn't offer hands. One of them spoke. "We need you to stop." "Stop what?" "All of it. The appearances, the symbolism, the movement. You're becoming an issue." He stepped forward. "For whom?" The man didn't blink. "For order." He smiled. The kind of smile that sees through people, not around them. "You think I'm a virus. I'm not. I'm a diagnosis. I didn't invent the fever. I just showed you that you have one." They left a card. No name, just a number. "When you're ready to disappear, call." He took the card, folded it in half, tossed it in the trash can outside a preschool. That night, on the Brooklyn Bridge, they gathered again. No flyer, no leader, no stage. Just a heartbeat, just the air humming with something too ancient for language. And there, moving among them, was the man in the black hoodie, not in front, not behind, among, but everywhere. And each person who moved beside him, no matter their color, size, age, gender, became a reflection. Each step echoed back centuries. Every spin called down ancestors. Every silence between movements screamed louder than megaphones. From his office, the mayor watched the live stream, jaw clenched, throat dry. One aide whispered what everyone now feared. "Sir, we're no longer watching a man. We're watching a movement." The city didn't wake up. It jolted like it had been caught oversleeping history. Monday morning arrived with more than a buzz. It was a hum, a murmur, a full-bodied vibration running through the streets, bouncing off subway tiles and high-rise glass, carried by headlines and whispers, emails and voice notes. Something was happening. Not organized, not orchestrated, but undeniable. New York didn't rise that morning because of routine. It rose because it had been called. The broadcast hit like gospel at Sunday service. The Harlem Arts Fund, An institution so ancient and stubborn it still faxes press releases announced the largest state-funded initiative for street dancers in history. Grants, studios, mentorships, health benefits, public stages, all approved, all allocated, all rolling out immediately. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice, and not because someone filed the right petition, or wrote the correct op-ed, or squeezed the right donor's hand at a gala. No, this happened because someone moved, because a body stepped outside of a loud, because a man danced where silence was expected, and in doing so, proved that movement can indict, inspire, and ignite without ever uttering a word. Cameras zoomed in on the announcement stage like satellites searching for signs of life. There were logos, podiums, velvet ropes, and right at the center stood a Prada-clad CNN anchor, polished within an inch of being human. She clutched her microphone like a torch and whispered, as the camera went live, "Oh my, he's here!" There was no cue, no announcement, no red carpet walk. He appeared. The man in the black hoodie, no entourage, no script, no notes. He stepped onto the stage not like a guest, but like a truth returning to its birthplace. He didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't even wave. He moved, just like before, a slow glide forward, a sudden turn sharp as a decision, a pause that sucked all air from the room, and then movement, pure, defiant, graceful, brutal movement. Every motion was an accusation, every gesture a paragraph. Every beat of his feet said things that reports never captured, about what had been stolen, ignored, buried. When he stopped, the room didn't erupt. It rose. No applause, no instruction, just a standing, breathless silence, because everyone knew this wasn't a performance. This was a confession. Over the next few days, letters flooded in, from school directors, council members, dance instructors, mayors. Some were neatly typed, others scrawled in ink. All said the same thing. Please lead this program, shape it, guide us. But he never replied. Because sometimes when the world finally starts listening, silence is the loudest answer you can give. And so the city, that stubborn, roaring, cynical city, answered itself. Across the Bronx, on the sides of housing projects and corner stores, stencils began to appear. His silhouette, arms mid-arc, head tilted just slightly skyward. Below the image, just one line. He moved, so we followed. But the story didn't end there. And not everyone smiled. In a pristine boardroom on Park Avenue, where suits cost more than minimum wage annual salaries and empathy is a line item marked optional, a group of executives stared at a flat screen replaying his speechless performance. An old man with silver cufflinks shaped like eagles, the kind of man who still called jazz urban noise, growled, "We're losing control." A younger man, barely 40 but with eyes dead from spreadsheets, added, "He's become irreversible." A symbol. And symbols don't negotiate. They didn't understand rhythm, couldn't quantify it, couldn't regulate it, and that made it dangerous. While they plotted policy pivots and PR dampeners, he was in a tiny building on 115th and Lexington. No neon sign, no press invitation, just a brown door and the sound of bass echoing through cracked tile and warm wood floors. Inside, not a dance school, a sanctuary, no uniforms, no grades, no levels. Just kids, brown, black, tall, shy, loud, tired, moving. No one was taught. They were trusted, not told how to dance, but shown that they could. And when one little girl, a bit round, breathing heavy, sweat mixing with her curls, tripped mid-step and fell flat in the center of the room, she looked up, tears blinking on her lashes, and whispered, "I can't. I'm not pretty enough for this." He didn't correct her. He didn't coach. He knelt beside her, looked her in the eyes and said, "If you were afraid and still moved, you're already beautiful. Because fear that doesn't stop you, that's called living. And nothing is more beautiful than someone who chooses to live." From that day on, he wasn't just a legend. He was hope. And when hope shines too bright, shadows get nervous. One night, his studio was plastered with hateful flyers. No spray paint, just precision-printed ugliness. Too much blackness. Why are they teaching our kids? He saw them at dawn. Didn't curse, didn't shout. He took a brush, a bucket of paint, and wrote over each one in sweeping letters. "We never asked for permission. We just danced." But one day the air shifted again. Outside his studio, a young cop, clearly new, clearly nervous, clearly taught more about compliance than community, raised a hand to his belt when he saw him crossing the street. "Hey, stop!" He turned calm. You're him, the dancer, right? Just a man who moves. Do you have a permit for this? There was silence. The officer was at a crossroads, a weapon in his training, a question on his lips, fear in his posture, and then a voice cut through. From the nearby corner store came an old man, leaning hard on a cane, ball cap slanted backward, Vietnam vet jacket zipped to the chin. You asking him for permission? Did you ask me for permission when I bled in a war so you could forget what freedom looks like? The officer froze, then, slowly, lowered his hand. I'm sorry, he said quietly. They taught us to be afraid of anything uncontrolled. The dancer nodded. That's not your fear. It's theirs, and they taught you to wear it like armor. Because that's what systems do. They don't fear anger. They expect it. But rhythm? Rhythm terrifies them. Because rhythm doesn't argue. It spreads. You can arrest a man, burn a building, scrub a name. But rhythm lives in others. 1 month later, he stepped outside and saw them. Kids on rooftops, in parks, on subway platforms, in hospital corridors, at school cafeterias, alone, in groups, moving, not performing, not obeying, just being. He smiled because he knew he was no longer needed, because they had learned. On the last day of summer, he walked down that same avenue where it had all begun, and there in the same spot stood another figure. Black hoodie, perfect form, smooth turns. Beside them, a child, mimicking every step. He paused, watched, and then, without a word, stepped into the shade. Didn't wave, didn't turn. Because the rhythm no longer needed a name, it had become language. He wasn't a hero. He was an echo. And now, whenever rhythm rises, he is there, not by face, but by truth. You can break a body, but not the movement. Because freedom isn't a speech. It's a step, and that step has already begun.